It's a political phenomenon that's happened around the world, and right now it's Australia's turn. Australia is in the middle of a far-right populist surge centred around the One Nation party and its colourful, controversial leader, Senator Pauline Hanson.
Pauline Hanson doesn't like immigrants and she hates the major parties. So I don't think there's probably a politician who's had more agenda-setting success in Australian politics in the last 30 years than Pauline Hanson.
That's Dr. Benjamin Moffitt from Monash University in Melbourne.
I've been researching populism since 2010. I've written 3 books on the topic, but I've kept my eye on One Nation since they emerged in 1998.
So, how did a party long dismissed as a fringe joke suddenly go mainstream in Australia, and how does this compare to similar movements that have already reshaped governments here in Europe and beyond? But before that, a little bit of context first. Like the UK, Australian politics has traditionally been a two-horse race. Last year, the centre-left Labor Party, led by Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, was re-elected in a surprising landslide. That election fractured the Conservative centre-right opposition coalition, and it's been in disarray ever since. Into that vacuum, Pauline Hanson's far-right One Nation has surged over economic fears, a housing crisis and unease over migration. In the last month or so, it won its first ever lower house seat in a by-election and then has led a number of national opinion polls, spooking the major parties and dominating the political conversation. So what is One Nation exactly, and what does it stand for?
They are very much in the mould of what Dutch political scientist Cas Mudde has called a populist radical right party. And what's important there is that we're not just calling them a populist party, it's that radical right part. These parties combine populism, which is about, presenting themselves for the people against the elite, with both nativism in terms of being opposed to immigrants, being opposed to non-native way of life, as well as an authoritarian disposition towards kind of law and order issues. This is a party that is popular with male voters. Again, this is very much in line with European populist radical right parties, the likes of AfD, the likes of Party for Freedom in the Netherlands, National Rally in France. If you had a conference of all these parties, of these populist radical right parties, Hanson would fit right in. She's singing from the same hymn book.
So who is the woman at the centre of all this?
I don't think there's probably a politician who's had more agenda-setting success in Australian politics in the last 30 years than Pauline Hanson. It's a colourful story. Pauline Hanson, originally a fish and chip shop owner in Ipswich, which is in the outer suburban area of Brisbane in Queensland, comes to prominence as a member of the Liberal Party in Queensland, this centre-right party, in late 90s, but gets kicked out of the party because she publishes, a straight-up racist, anti-Indigenous rant in the newspaper. So they boot her out of the party. She still runs. She still gets in because she's still noted as they can't reprint the ballots in time, and sets up this party, One Nation. Makes big waves when she does her first speech.
I believe we are in danger of being swamped by Asians. Between 1984 and 1995, 40% of all migrants into this country were of Asian origin. They have their own culture and religion, form ghettos and do not assimilate.
Pauline Hanson was defeated from her lower house seat at the 1998 federal election, though that same year her party briefly surged in Queensland state elections before largely disappearing. She even went to prison briefly in 2003 on electoral fraud charges that were later overturned. Hanson made a comeback in 2016, elected with a number of others from her party to Australia's upper house, the Senate. She's twice worn a burqa inside the chamber as a stunt to campaign for a full-face covering ban in Australia. And remember that being swamped by Asians quote? Well, Hanson updated that line in her maiden speech to the Senate 20 years later.
Now we are in danger of being swamped by Muslims who bear a culture and ideology that is incompatible with our own.
She's not a charismatic firebrand like some other populist radical right leaders. She's She doesn't have the gift of the gab by, like, say, Nigel Farage. Um, she often is stumbling over her words. Her appeal is that she doesn't present and doesn't talk like, a polished politician.
Pauline Hanson also has some significant backers, like Australia's richest person, Gina Rinehart. The mining magnate donated a $1 million plane to One Nation recently to help her travel and campaign in regional areas. But none of this fully explains why her surge in popularity is happening now.
The biggest driver of this has been an utter collapse of the main centre-right party in Australia, the coalition between the Liberal and the National parties, who did reasonably well at keeping One Nation at bay over many decades. And that party is having almost a existential identity crisis. At the same time, like many other countries, Australia is undergoing, significant economic strain, given, financial pressures around the world, the blocking of the Strait of Hormuz. There is a significant housing issue here in Australia that's setting up real intergenerational divides, similar to places like Canada, where huge huge amounts of the market, and particularly younger people, are being locked out, and this kind of downward mobility in terms of generations going on. But also, I mean, your viewers would know, there's significant social unrest and challenges to social cohesion, particularly after the Bondi attacks that took place at Bondi Beach in Australia late last year, in terms of stemming concerns about Islam, stemming concerns about terrorism. And beyond that, we had a number of rallies taking place late throughout the back half of last year, called March for Australia rallies that were about, quote unquote, taking Australia back, very much out of that kind of make, let's say, Australia great again playbook. And this stuff's all going on kind of at the same time. So there's no smoking gun about why this is happening now. It's a number of factors, and One Nation happens to be in the right place at the right time.
And for a party that spent decades on the fringes, that timing has been everything. What's striking isn't just that this is happening, it's how fast.
I'd describe their success as surprising. Even those of us who have been watching this for a long time have been shocked, I guess, at how dramatically quick the rise has been. We're having a bit of a realignment that, is almost decades late in terms of, what Europeans have been used to. Europeans have witnessed in country after country either populist radical right or far right parties really usurping or putting into considerable crisis the centre-right parties in their own countries. This has just happened very rapidly and also very late in the piece, comparatively. So this is a familiar pattern in terms of what's going on, but the speed at which it is happening and the fact that it's happening with a relatively established party is what is, really quite novel. I can't think of anything that's happened this fast with this kind of this kind of established party comparatively anywhere, to be honest.
Benjamin Moffitt says One Nation's recent successes have helped give it legitimacy. Now it faces a real test to keep the momentum and hold it all together for the next federal elections due in 2028.
This is a party that has just been rocked by defection after defection, financial scandal after financial scandal, just a shocking party organisation structure. Now, this has started to shift. The party has been getting more organised. If the polls continue in the way that they have been heading, and I think we're at a point where, people can't act surprised anymore. If I had to make a guess, I think that One Nation are going to be the second biggest party in the next federal election. That I think is the credible prediction at present.
So what do you think about Benjamin Moffitt's prediction? And how does the situation in Australia right now compare to where you're from? Let us know in the comments. We've also got more Australia content on our channel, like analysis on the AUKUS submarine deal. That's all for now. I'm Jared Reid in Berlin. Thank you to Benjamin Moffitt and my producers Till Boller, Joel Dulroy and Yvonne Cheshire. Take care.